All right, welcome to our latest hot take. This time, Aaron and I are going to be talking about Black Panther,
Yeah.
which is great for us because we're two white guys.
Yeah, by now you've read or seen half a dozen videos or articles of people much more qualified to discuss Black Panther, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. I loved that. I love that Marvel is doing now doing movies that aren't just their formula. I enjoyed Ragnarok for that reason, where it was superhero, but it was funny. It was a buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
Or this one, which was let's combine Lord of the Rings, James Bond, and Iron Man.
Well, and so Ryan Coogler's the director, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And actually, his cinematographer for this movie is up for another award, not for this movie, but for a different movie she did.
Uh-huh.
But there was just a lot more care put into this than into some of the other Marvel stuff, I thought.
Sure.
I actually found myself during the fight scenes wishing that those were shorter so I could get more exposition, which is weird.
Yeah, no, I get that.
There's a lot going on here, and a lot of this has to do with a history of black superheroes and a history of black culture that I am only sort of like tangentially aware of.
Yeah.
It's usually like I have to ask people, what does this mean?
Right.
Which is fine, because, the great thing about a movie this good is that it doesn't have to be for you to get something out of it.
Yeah.
So, like, you have T'Challa on the one hand, who is the Black Panther Wakandan prince character.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Killmonger, who is like T'Challa's cousin, like his first cousin.
Yeah.
So basically, like, T'Challa's uncle goes to America in like the 70s
Mm-hmm.
and has a child, and then something happens to him and the child gets left there.
Mm-hmm.
And then later that child grows up to be Killmonger and gets trained by the CIA and becomes like this super badass, and then comes back to Wakanda to challenge T'Challa to be Black Panther, because it's like I guess it is like the kingship, but it's also like, it's like if you mixed a king and Batman.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
Oh yeah. And there are so many layers to the movie. I mean, we could spend the rest of the night just breaking down every aspect of the James Bond element of it.
When you say James Bond element of it, what do you mean by that?
Well, the car chases, gadgets.
Well, the gadgets are awesome because T'Challa's younger sister is kind of like the Q of Black Panther.
Right.
And she's like 16 and she's this total genius.
Yeah, I would not be the least bit surprised, and I would actually be pretty happy if at the end, okay, there are 2 more Avengers movies. There's the one that comes out later this year, and there's 1 more to go. And and at the end of that one, Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr.'s contract expire.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can't imagine both of them will say, "Okay, we're done." But I suspect
Robert Downey Jr. might.
Well, yeah, but I suspect that if they continue with the Marvel universe, it'll be in a much more reduced form, like
cameo, like a Stanley thing almost.
Right, or even just like M, showing up, like, oh, I'm sending you on your mission or whatever, and I would love to see the mantle of Iron Man being passed on to T'Challa's sister. That I think would be really cool.
Oh, that would be awesome.
And it would be a similar thing to what's going on with the comics, where it's not the same character, but right now Iron Man is the name Iron Man is being used by 2 people, Victor Von Doom and another character who I don't recall, but a brilliant black scientist,
right,
or a female scientist.
And so that's the other thing about this movie that's actually really great, is it's very organically feminist. Like, in Wakanda, you can tell that even though Wakanda has a king, it's actually like a matriarchal society. So you have Angela Bassett's character, who's like the Queen Mother, and she is, like, from her kind of emanates all of this, like, just like profound female power. So you have T'Challa's younger sister. You have his, I guess, like, ex-girlfriend at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Who
a strange girlfriend,
right? A strange girlfriend who is like this cool She kind of is like a spy. She's oh my god, she was like one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Yeah.
And then you have all of the Wakandan like King's Guard who are all women and they're all badasses and like so many people. The cool thing about this movie I thought was that so many of the people in it were like actually African. There were several people who were African American, but they bridged the African American sort of they bridged the diaspora very well. I mean, it was like the costume designers actually went and did research and found like all of these various clothing and jewelry and hairstyles that corresponded to specific parts of Africa and like the traditional kind of hairstyles and clothing and color palettes and stuff. So I thought that was really awesome. Yeah. I mean, like the movie, like I said, I'm enjoying less and less the CGI battles. I just like there's this scene where T'Challa and Killmonger are fighting, and then it very quickly makes that transition from face shot to clearly this is like a video game.
A lot of mocap.
And I was kind of like, man, I wish they would have just talked more.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very weird.
Well, I mean that gets into one of my long-standing gripes with a lot of superhero movies, the hero versus hero thing. Where it's like we're grown adults who fundamentally disagree on point X. So
right.
So let's beat each other up until one of us says uncle.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing that I think we should finish on here is so you have Killmonger and T'Challa each represent a very specific worldview, and so I have a very let's just say academic understanding of this. Yeah. I don't fully feel like I understand. I mean, I know I don't understand all the nuances of like what it means to be African or African American, but I also feel like there's a lot more to this comic arc than I really fully comprehend.
Right. I mean, you and I talked about this right after the movie, where there are so many layers and layers that friends of ours or colleagues of ours might explain to us and say, right. this is how I connect with my experience as a black person.
Right.
But even if they explain it to us, we're still not going to get a certain level of it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: people don't have to explain this to us because again, this movie may not have been targeted at us, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how many white rich guys can we watch punch each other?
Yeah.
So anyway, I digress on that, but like. So you have Killmonger, who kind of represents this worldview, in my understanding of, we need to recolonize the colonizers.
His approach is we have to take over as they took over from us.
Right, right. His approach is it's kind of like reparations to the extreme. But there's this interesting scene where Killmonger is in a museum and he found a piece of vibranium, which is like the mineral that makes Wakanda super rich and technologically advanced. And he found this piece that he was going to steal, and then he's looking at these other African artifacts, and then this white lady who's a curator comes up to him and starts explaining them to him, of course, because she assumes he doesn't know, I guess. And then it turns out that he does know, and then he kind of schools her, which is pretty cool. But his worldview is kind of more of sort of an extreme, maybe an extreme view that an African American person could conceivably have. That would it makes sense even to me as a white person. Like you're watching it and you see Killmonger, you see what he does, and of course he's like clearly, super violent, and he's clearly a vigilante, and he's clearly like little damaged.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's akin to the whole Magneto Professor X relationship.
It's very similar. Yeah, and the Magneto Professor X relationship or dichotomy is based on the Martin Luther King Malcolm X dichotomy.
Yeah.
And Martin Luther King was very like oppose the system but work with the system to improve, or not passively, non-violently resist the system. And Malcolm X was like, no, fuck that. We need to just take it back. And that's kind of what Killmonger is doing. T'Challa, though, does not. He doesn't really. He's not really the Martin Luther King. He's more like. I mean, he's so like as white people and as Americans, I think we probably assume that like everyone has some understanding and appreciation for American culture. But the thing is, if you think about it, if you grew up in this super technologically advanced society, as a as a king or a prince, why would you care about like piddly America, except as it attempts to encroach on you or colonize you? And so Wakanda had sort of traditionally been very, very insular and very secretive, trying to keep, because you look at what happened to the rest of Africa and Asia, and the Middle East for that matter, in South America, and you see what sort of white ethnocentric Anglo-American, or Western European culture has kind of done to these places, and it totally makes sense why a fictional king of a small wealthy nation in Africa would not want to hang out. But so like T'Challa is kind of more, he's a little bit more old guard within his country in that way, and so he's kind of trying to trying to keep the rest of the world at arm's length. But then T'Challa's father, who he communicates with in some way in this movie, I won't spoil it, but T'Challa's father, he finds out something about his father that kind of T'Challa sort of moves toward Killmonger a little bit. And so he even says, like, essentially that was really fucked up what happened to you, and that shouldn't have happened. So,
well, what are your final thoughts on?
I think it's incredibly necessary, and I love seeing like how many Black folks just were like super like over the moon about and I mean, like, I love the movie. I thought it was awesome, but it's just really great. It reminded me of like those summer blockbusters where there's just something about it within the zeitgeist that just really like works. Like, I kind of remember feeling that way when I saw Independence Day for the first time when I was a kid. Yeah. Where it's just something about like, you're a little kid and you don't know better, and you're like, yeah, America. That's kind of it's kind of it was just like a bunch of people who probably don't get to do this very often, just being like, yeah, Afrofuturism. Like it was awesome. I mean,
I agree. It reminds me of, there was a YouTube video where you have this group going to see the movie, and there's this this one guy who goes up to the movie poster on the wall going, is this what it's like for you guys all the time? Being a white guy, this is okay. We get it.
Well, and you look at, I mean, if you look at the Marvel cast right now, how many women, people of color are there? Yeah. Not a lot. No. Well, I mean, there's it's kind of like when they do those stock photography things, and they have like a group, and they're like, oh God, this is all white men. Yeah. Let's go hire like 5 extras who are not white men, and then just like sprinkle them through this so it looks like we're not racist. I mean, that's what the Marvel lineup kind of looks like right now. And the unfortunate thing about Marvel, it's traditionally been a lot more forward thinking than DC has, or than other comics have.
Well, what I'm really looking forward to is with the over the top box office success of this, and with Wonder Woman, and the critical acclaim of numerous other movies that are, for want of a better phrase off the top of my head, giving us messages that we need to hear. Yeah. I'm optimistic that Hollywood will say, oh, there's money to be made here. Let's do more of this.
And I mean, the money is great, but it's also like such a cultural vindication, because I mean, if I remember asking this particular professor I know who works at Washington University, who's she does women and gender studies and all kinds of stuff like that. Just asking her, because she writes a lot about black superheroes. And I just remember asking her, I was like, so was Shaft a superhero? Like, who are the cultural precedents for this? And you know, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. That's not really the point of what I'm saying. But it's just like, really, you can count them on like two hands.
Mm.
I mean, what it's so it's like Storm, obviously,
Yeah.
Blade. We'll put Shaft on there. Why the hell not? Black Lightning, who has black in his name, which is Black Panther. That's 5.
Yeah.
I mean, like there are others.
Right.
There are several others, but a lot of them, like there's this great podcast called Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro,
Mm-hmm.
and it's these two black women who just like the 4 or 5 episodes of it I've listened to are just them. They'll just like bring out a weird, obscure.
Luke Cage.
Well, not Luke Cage, but they'll bring out like an obscure black superhero or heroine who has like, you know, who's in like 3 issues of Captain America in 1971 or something.
Yeah.
And then they'll just talk about it. And they're like, so what does this represent? And then they'll kind of make fun of it, but they'll also try to draw a cultural significance from that and just be like, okay, so what did we learn?
Yeah.
But you should go see Black Panther. That's what I'm saying. That's
Absolutely.
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Go see it.